Alright, lads. Let's see what shit we have to wade through this time. I still need to focus on reorienting our military towards the northwest and gaining alliances with whoever we can. Let's read the newspapers first, see what's going on. Sideline today, school poisoning? Oh no, that's terrible. Okay, time for me to stand up. Questioning solaced education. Righto, what do economists have to say? Upcoming government budget changes. As the top economy experts in the country, we've been watching the upcoming changes in the government budget very closely. President Anton Rein's first internal economical challenge lies ahead, and we will see if he can prove his capabilities as a leader who can think ahead. The potential ramifications of diverting the funding to certain governmental branches has always been a point of contention for any leader, and it is no different in this case. We will see if President Rein can hold on to the promises he has given during the election campaign. Righto, and what's happening with the geopoliticos? Van Herten blames Valksland for the missing fishing vessel. Now, this is not good. On Tuesday morning, Agnolia's Prime Minister Van Herten has made a statement denouncing Valksland for the missing vessel hull number. Our dutiful coastguards have rescued a crew member of the missing vessel. Through his statement, we've learned the ship's unfortunate end was none other than Valksland's navy. However, the Prime Minister's refused to disclose the surviving crew member due to fear of an assassination attempt to cover up their hostility, as the Minister later claimed. I don't think they'd just kill some random sailor, would they? Well, anyway, bit of a South China Sea situation here by the looks of it. Alright, let's go through our... Not you. Let's go through our bits and pieces here. So we've got... Oh, there's one over here as well. Read the report from Narbel's lack of hospitals. That's terrible. What do we got here? Brutish resistance in sanctuaries. Not good. What do we got here? Recession hits farmers again. 16% of all wheat in Lockhaven is rotting in barns from a lack of buyers. Yeah, so we need to get those trade deals online. Young swords and NFP flags burned at a counter-protest. Well, better they do that than actually shoot each other, so that's alright. Communist books burned in Boren. Same thing, but other way around. Okay, what do we got? Barbecue with Frank. It was a Saturday afternoon, my first break from work in what felt like years, and the weather couldn't have been more perfect. Trying to keep my mind off the upheaval sparked by the Kurtcast assassination, I lit the backyard grill. Monica and Dina were out shopping for craft supplies, and I'd given the staff the day off. It was just myself and Frank at home. I wasn't sure how he felt about me at that moment, but I did know how he felt about barbecued ribs. Our cook had left some marinating in the refrigerator. Sure enough, as soon as Frank glimpsed the grill and the meat, he stepped outside to join me. Come to spend some quality time with your old man, have you? Sure, if you could spare a few minutes out of your busy schedule. Yeah, I would say that if I could be sure that he would take it as though I was joking. Look, son, I'm preoccupied with matters of national importance. Sorry, I know I haven't been around very often lately, but I'm happy to see you now. It's okay, I know you've got the most stressful job in the country and you've got to feed your family on top of it all. We both chuckled and I turned to tend the fire. Here, let me try. Grabbed the fan and started quickly waving it over the coals, and the fire roared into life. Bit of a feel-good moment here, lads. He turned to look at me with a grin on his face, as if he was expecting praise. Not bad, son, not bad. Thank you, sir. It is in our utmost interest to fulfill our duties with precision. The grilling shall commence in exactly 1 minute and 32 seconds. That was a spot-on impersonation of Lucian. We looked at each other for a second and then burst out laughing. I realised my throat was parched, and there was a 6-pack of beer in the kitchen. Why don't you grab us a couple of beers? He looked at me in disbelief. You mean I can, but Mum told me... He stopped himself, quickly ran inside and returned with the 2 beers. We cracked them open, clinked bottles and gazed out at the city skyline. For a moment my thoughts flashed back to my childhood and my relationship with my own father. My father was a rich man. We never had to worry about food, clothes or anything else. Yet he was nearly always away, constantly distracted on the rare occasions when he was at home. Now that I was the president, I was worried that I would end up just like my father, distant and absent from Frank's life. Dad, can I ask you something? I bet this is about girls, isn't it? Go on. We're family, you can ask about anything. Wait for him to think about what to say. We're family, you can ask anything. It's just, I feel like there's so much you've been hiding from me about your past and what's been going on right now. Like at dinner that night after the ball, you told me everything was under control, but it wasn't, was it? I know what happened in the 20s, we learned all about it in school. Now with the protests and the riots, it's going to be the same thing. Dad, is there going to be a civil war in Swordland? I hope not. He let out a sigh. But what was it like back then? Uncle Peter said the two of you went through a lot. I'm not a kid anymore, you can tell me. Before I could gather my thoughts, the familiar images started flashing before my eyes. Soldiers advancing towards me and my friends, weapons drawn. People I knew, friends and neighbours, being dragged through the streets and murdered in the alleyways. The shock and grief on the faces of fathers, mothers and orphaned children. Those were dark times. It seems like it. But you're nearly a grown man, let's talk about it. Frank leaned forward in his chair, his eyes wide. Tell Frank about the coup of 1927. Tell Frank about the Civil War. Yeah, we'll tell him about the coup. That's the one that's like more appropriate to his actual situation, seeing as I'm in the leadership position and all that. I was barely older than you are now, studying history at the Dyer University of Culture. I was a freshman, excited and young. I had just left the classroom to go back home as I heard the sound of multiple vehicles approaching the campus gates. As they got closer, I realised they were military camouflage tanks carrying hundreds of soldiers. They pointed their guns at us. They immediately took control of the facilities. One of my friends asked what was going on and was arrested immediately. More people got angry and gathered in protest. Refrain from telling him about your quick escape. Yeah. Well, I want to set a good model for the boy. Seeing the crowd gathering, I knew something was going to happen, something bad. I decided it was impossible to go against armed men and departed. I stopped there and turned my head away from Frank. Tell Frank about the Civil War. It was right after I met your mother. We had both joined the same political debate group and pushed for change after the coup of 27, but over the next year the state of Swordland deteriorated. People started picking sides and I tried to stay away as much as I could. Right. Clickety click. Tell Frank about the clash between Luderin and Rickard. Then one night it happened, two different factions in the army, one of them led by fascist General Luderin and the other by socialist General Rickard, started fighting against each other. It was a bloodbath and nowhere was safe. Frank shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. I stayed out of it. People organised protests either for or against Rickard. I heard about the clashes the next day. Many of my friends were shot or arrested. I isolated myself for months. That's enough for today. It's okay, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked you about it. I know I don't understand how easy my life is sometimes. One thing though, I know that you managed to not take any sides. Do you mind if I ask why? Yes, I do mind. I didn't want to be part of the violence. There are two sides of the same coin. Yep. Frank raised his eyebrows, his curiosity still not satisfied, but sensing my reluctance to go on, he simply nodded. Sorry for bombarding you with questions. I know I complain sometimes, but my problems are nothing compared to what you went through. You're damn right, your generation will never understand. Yeah, well, even though that's true, you gotta be sympathetic. I'm here to listen to them no matter what they are. Before Frank could say anything else, cool, the girls are home. I had the same nightmares again that night. Brutal. Alright, what else have we got? Prisoners' riot in Antal Rock Prison. It was eventually suppressed. And does it say what it was? Too late. Should have paid attention. Morna industrial output concerns. The Mayor of Morna has reported that the industrial output numbers this year are 12% lower than last year. They are requesting additional support to improve their industrial capacity, including machinery and personnel, to combat the downwards trend. With the construction of several new factories in Morna, the Mayor stated his belief that an economic upturn in the city is still possible if government investments succeed. Well, certainly hope so. According to the current projection, Morna is set to lose an additional 2% of industrial output next year. However, according to the local report from the municipality, an investment worth several billions of SR will stop the downward trend and increase the industrial output in a short amount of time. Oh yeah? Well, we'll consider that, maybe. Still don't want to spend that very last one. Because I don't know if you can borrow in this game. Otherwise, I would just happily borrow and borrow and borrow. Presidential visit to Narbel. Yeah, I won't do that one just yet. Did I see another little yellow tag floating around? Where'd you go, buddy? Is it this guy? Read the report from Wholesword. USP report on reforms. Many members of the USP, those are United Swordland, led by Albin Claven, and the reformist wing of the party, clarified the demands about the government in the party congress. For the upcoming and constitutional reform, Albin Claven stated that without minister reforms, they won't be able to stand behind the new reform package. Well, we've announced our intention to commit to those reforms, so I don't know what he's worried about. And here, what else have we got? L1 report. Construction manager for the L1 Railways reported that the work has been going well and they've already started laying the foundations of the ground retaining walls, bridges and tracks. Project supervisors from the government confirmed the report, saying that most of the preliminary work was already done by Underhaul and everything was going according to schedule. Alright, that's great news. If they bring it in on time, that'll be fantastic. Alright, let's visit Narbel. Oi! Bit tense. Hope we brought a decent military contingent for this one. I was travelling to the snow-covered city of Narbel in the Nagas region for the Rural Development Forum organised by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. The mountainous city of Narbel had gritty tones to it. It's mostly regarded as one of the poorer areas in North Swordland. Its people were hardy and wary. Even after the discovery of natural resources in the area, years of neglect by the central government were apparent on the buildings and the general infrastructure. Natural resources, namely gas and oil, were now under the control of Gasom, which elevated the corporation to a place of power. Yep, standard gas company, cool. My task in this forum was mainly symbolic. Fake smiles and handshakes with oil barons, meeting the local politicians, but most importantly of all, make sure that Narbel does not feel like it was forgotten by the government. The scenery so far, however, was a reflection of Narbel's neglect. Main roads to the city were not maintained well, there were many bumps and empty discoloured spots in the asphalt. Navigating and swerving to avoid the conveniences, our motorcade finally started nearing the city. As if my discomfort from the bumpy ride was apparent to him, Serge rolled down the partition window. We'll be arriving at Hotel West in a few minutes, sir. Well, thanks for letting me know, I suppose. Any time, it is my duty. Serge started to smile under his moustache. How's life, Sergei? Sir, I just wanted to say it's been great these last 2 months. As you know, my wife, Susan, recently gave birth to our son, sir. And now my daughter just started a very good high school in Wholesword. Oh, that's great news, and I am happy for you. I appreciate it, sir. Truly, I was worried I wouldn't be able to afford a good private school if she scored less in the entrance exams, but I shouldn't have made my insecurity get to me. Erica outsmarts me all the time. I'm very proud to have a daughter like her. I also hope that Diana will grow to be like her mother someday. I'm sure she will, sir. After all, she's the daughter of a lion and a lioness. My daughter looks up to the First Lady for inspiration, and it's not just limited to my daughter, sir. She's an inspiration for almost all women in the country. But at the same time, it must be hard for the First Lady as well. All this attention, adjusting to this new high-profile life, and a husband that has great responsibility. It's hard for us. That's none of your business. Let's not talk about my family, Serge. Yeah. Familiarity breeds contempt. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. There was a long silence. After several minutes, Serge attempted to break the silence. Have I told you, sir? We named my son Jorg. The doctor said he is very healthy, and thankfully so is my wife. That's good. I hope the hospital had a good service. Normally we would have been treated in one of the suburban hospitals, but thanks to the special coverage of the presidential staff, we were transferred to Emerald State Hospital. We need to increase the quality of services for all. Sounds like a tough issue to solve. I already started thinking about the university education. I want to send you to a good private school, but with the current state of the economy, blah blah blah. You know what? I can pay for the education of your children. We will fix the economy one way or another. If anyone can, that's you, Mr. President. That's right. The car hit a major pothole and a bump which lifted us up out of our seats for a second. Are you fine? Yes, sir, I hope the car is fine too. The motorcade began approaching the hotel. Come on, let's get to the beef. Alright, so we get to the motel. See you later, Serge. Righto. Cool. Then what happened? Briefing on the current welfare situation. Yikes. Such a spectacular view. Spectacular indeed, but if you look at the opposite direction, you'll see what Sol's decades of neglect did to the city. Most of the people living in Arbel are workers, farmers and their wives and children, breaking their backs for close to no pay, all thanks to greedy corporations. My intention is to help the working class. Well, I'm glad to see we see eye to eye on the issue. If you look past the view, you can see the real problems, like poverty. I don't need to tell you about my own experiences with poverty. I'm sure you have too. Am I right, Mr. President? Oh, thankfully, we've all gone through difficult times. You know, mine not necessarily financially, though. True, but some lives are more difficult than others, like ours was, and still is for hundreds of thousands in Swordland. You don't have to have been born poor to sympathise with the plight of the impoverished, much as you don't have to be born a woman to recognise Swordland's need for parity among the sexes. Her tone gets serious. Isn't it time Holsword addressed these issues, rather than bowing to the wishes of the hawks and fearmongers in the establishment, and diverting yet more resources to the military and law enforcement? Pfft, easy for you to say. This place is going to get frickin' rolled. Our welfare, healthcare and education systems have been decaying since the recession. Swordland's poorer communities are losing hope. Hopelessness and a lack of opportunity can drive people to extreme solutions. We're seeing an increase in crime, domestic violence, rising inequality between men and women. Lilias Graff will take care of crime since she's an expert on the subject. Those issues must be tackled from different directions and need to engage it holistically. If only we can stop the recession, create jobs and growths, the capital must be prioritised towards the resources that matter most. The economic situation does play a huge role in living standards. Our urban and rural disparities are stark, and the recession hit the weakest harder. We can't fix the economy by ourselves. We have to educate the people and let them create new opportunities too. Absolutely right. There's another subject I want to mention. I have been working on improving the rights of workers in our country and have proposed a draft bill that is currently being reviewed by our party. Mr. Claven has already backed me and given me his support. Swordland has fallen behind most countries on the subject, and it is my responsibility to ensure that it is not the case. Improving the rights of workers. Yep. If the very lives of our workers isn't a priority, then what is? Our administration should be able to set a budget aside for these types of improvements. It's also a matter of life and death. Every decade we hear of some horrific accident due to employers' disregard for their workers' safety. So would you back the bill when it arrives on your desk, Mr. President? I'm going to dither on this one. I would need to evaluate the contents in detail. Understandable. Alright. Let's start with your health overview, Pascal. Swordland has a free healthcare system except for a few private hospitals operating under it. Most of the populace receives adequate treatment. Health issues primarily appear in rural areas due to a lack of quality services. I'm doing my best to ensure that citizens of all ages receive the best healthcare they can. I also personally want to solve the high infant and maternal mortality problem. What is the life expectancy and mortality rates? Life expectancy is 65 years and the infant mortality rate is a worrying 85 per 1,000 births. That's horrific. While our maternal mortality is 90 per 1,000. God, that's awful. Be assured that we're doing everything we can to save mothers and their newborn. Those numbers are saddening indeed. I agree. I accept nothing but your best efforts to improve the situation. We must do everything we can. We're working very hard on improving the quality of the services. How many doctors and nurses are employed? 31,000 and 73,000. I don't want to be rude, but out of those numbers, how many are in urban and rural areas? Good point, Pascal. The data shows about that per 10,000 people in urban areas, there are about 11 doctors, while in rural areas there are only 3. 3 doctors for 10,000 people. Yikes. Treatment time is still too high due to low numbers of doctors in rural areas, which get barely any proper coverage. And how many hospital beds are there per 10,000? A lower number than in other countries. Thank you very much. And what's the education system like? It's free but outdated. The other important issue is a lack of access to education in rural areas, especially for girls. Your administration has the power to solve both problems. My highest priority is to get enough funding to be able to build schools in rural areas while I cleanse our educational system of its nationalistic indoctrination and sexist teachings. Is that right? How many students and teachers? What's the literacy rate? Literacy rate is 80%. Most illiterate areas are Bergia and Argenland. It's not great, but that's enough for the economy. Tell me about the difference between urban and rural education. Righto, that's not a very good ratio. Yeah. Alright, cool. I can fill in the blanks from here. Great. It's not just about Sol or even Alfonso failing. This decay in Swordland's forgotten regions has been going on for many decades due to structural corruption, which is fueled by capitalism. Well, I don't disagree with that analysis, but if there's corruption in the system, it does need to be flushed out. Pascal, what do you think? It is the responsibility of each and every one of us. One way or another we need to transform. Greed and unchecked capitalism will not magically provide for the people. Yeah, well, hopefully, once the economy grows, it will eventually reach all the way out here in the WOPs. What are you working towards? Yes, you want to increase the quality. I understand that. I could do more with an increased budget. Additionally, a privatisation plan to promote private investments in the healthcare system could allocate extra funds. Isn't access to healthcare in rural areas an issue? Quality of healthcare in less fortunate areas matters more. Access is an issue, but not as critical as the quality in these areas. The lack of experienced personnel or equipment causes bad treatment, resulting in many deaths. I do hope to create competition and increase the quality of healthcare with the privatisation effort. Oh, that's good. The decision not to promote more state control would cost the people dearly. And what's your plan, Chiara? An increase in the government budget. Yes, I'm not surprised in the slightest. Interesting, I thought we had a quality of service problem. Isn't Swordish education lacking in quality? The investment would be the future of Swordland. Imagine the untapped potential of the youth unlocked, the knowledge and wealth they will generate. Wouldn't promotion of a private education help create additional funds? Yes, but at what cost? I'm not a supporter of the private sector in education, because at the end of the day they are focused on profit first. My expectation from our government is that we understand and focus on the needs of the people. Yeah, well, it all needs to be paid for somehow. Either they pay for it themselves or they pay the taxes, and the taxes pay for it with an additional layer of inefficiency. Bloomin' socialists. We're elected representatives of our people and will prioritise their needs. There are other significant issues we need to focus on, like security. I appreciate your briefings and plans. We will reconvene at the budget meeting. I can't get their hopes up, that's for sure. There have been a lot of negative developments recently. It is the same play in the same book. The security complex in the country keeps driving the agenda as usual. Well, look, if you want to face down the tanks, feel free to get on the front line. Jeepers. Thank you for your time. I do hope we won't repeat the same mistakes again and again. Yeah. What have we got here? A report? Young Swords member found decapitated. Alright, that's not good. And we've got 2 more reports over here. Young Sword suspected for terror attack. And a Morbel mine disaster. That's terrible. Alright. And that will wrap it up. Just a zip-zap episode today, lads.